All right, we want to welcome you into Coronavirus Inside the Arizona Numbers. It is February 23rd, 2021. Our first day with you here this week. I was off yesterday, and we want to get to some of the numbers and the milestones. A grim and very sad milestone that we passed over the weekend. Just yesterday, actually, was a 500,000 American lives lost to this. So before we start, we just pause for just a moment to remember each of those people. I know we here talk about the numbers so often, and we have never in this entire year of reporting to you guys stopped forgetting that there are people and real stories behind those numbers. So we know so many of you have been affected by it disproportionately. So we just want to take a moment and pause to think of them. In the meantime, you will notice because of that, the flags at half staff around the country here in Arizona for the rest of the week as we remember them. But we get into the numbers today, Garrett, and we start where we always do. I do want to mention one bit of good news. Gila County is already moving into Group 1C, so that is the first county to move into that next group. So we'll talk about that throughout the hour, but we'll start where we always do, Garrett, on that summary page here in Arizona for our numbers.
Yes, so today, it is Tuesday, so we were expecting a higher number in certain respects, especially on that death number. Today, number of new cases reported, 1,184. I'll bring this closer so people can see it. 1,184 new cases reported. Number of new deaths reported, 148. And what that is doing, I'm just going to kind of go through the averages here. We in Arizona have been sort of holding at a 1,500 day case average for since February 18th. So about the last 6 days, we've been stagnant at about 1,500 new cases being added on any given day. The number of deaths is also fairly is stalled out. We were at 99 average daily deaths on the 16th of February, and today we're at 95. So what it looks like is happening is Arizona has, the last couple of weeks we've experienced pretty significant decreases in COVID-19. We had the lowest RT rate in the country. We are, I just did the calculation today, 85% lower number of new cases added on a given day than when we were on our peak. So we have fallen pretty far in Arizona, but now it looks like we're starting to see a floor, or at least a temporary floor. I don't know how long it's going to last or if it's just a slowdown, but we're seeing indications the positivity rate has stopped at about 9%. It's no longer going down. It's not going up by very much, but it is not going down anymore. So we're just starting to see indications that we're at a floor right now and that our numbers aren't going to be going down as quickly as they have been for the past couple of weeks. Yeah,
I was going to ask you to how you would describe that, because we sort of saw a plateau in some of those numbers after we reached our peaks. And I was curious if you thought we were just going to hang out here for just a bit, or if any modeling is even suggesting that this is kind of the lowest we'll go and just hang here for a bit.
No, it does appear that well, the modeling suggests that numbers should be going down and that they'll continue to go down. However, we are kind of it looks like we're sort of at the end of the curve, and that now instead of if you remember these bell curves, you have this really steep increase and then a really steep decrease, and then it sort of slides out and starts a longer, lesser decrease. Kind of when you get to that night, we're at 85%. So it took us a couple weeks to go to 85%, and it's going to take us more time to go from 85% to say 95%. It'll take significantly more time. So it's just one of those things in statistics and in numbers, in that now that we've sort of hit this threshold, we're still going to continue to go down, but it's just not going to go as quickly as it was. And there's a lot of factors for that. Obviously, there's less testing being done because there's less demand for testing. And we're also obviously vaccinating more people. So there's a bunch of things at play right now that are going to slow this thing down.
So Garrett, with all these things in play, I wonder your thoughts on this, because so Arizona is such an interesting state. Obviously, we have more than 7 million people, but we have this epicenter of people, if you will, 4.5 million right here in Maricopa County. So that's a pretty large concentration. And then when we have these state-run pods that are turning out vaccinations in such a high number, and so many are concentrated right here in Arizona, I know that they don't provide us specific breakdowns of localities for these people getting their shots necessarily outside of counties, but it would be interesting to look at how many people are vaccinated specifically who live in Maricopa County, because when we're looking at the state and we're saying, okay, we have 7.5 million, and just today, by the way, for everybody, we had 1.5 million Arizonans vaccinated. I have to figure a large number of those are going to be right here in Maricopa County, and that drilling down in those numbers a little bit more, if you're looking at the 4 million in Maricopa County or 4.5 million, it makes those ratios even more interesting to see what's at play here and how that could pull the numbers down.
So let's look through
Yeah.
some Maricopa's vaccine data. So about 527,000, 500,000 people in Arizona have received their first, or in Maricopa County, excuse me, have received their first dose. 182,000 their second dose. So you can see there's a pretty decent number there on the number, 182 to 527 is actually a pretty decent gap that's being closed for Maricopa County. So here's this chart that talks about that. This chart right here is showing you the first versus second dose administration. One of the things I find interesting, you see that we're starting to see a slowdown in the acceleration of first doses right now. That we're seeing the last 2 weeks. You can see just look fairly similar. We're not really seeing an increase any longer, but we are seeing an increase in the number of second dose vaccinations that are being done in Maricopa County.
Oh, that's really interesting, Garrett, because if we look at that, then does that correlate? And I know we don't have an overlay map for that, but the dates on when the next group would be let in. So, our
question. I'd have to look at the groups, but yeah, so I think we could do something like that.
Yeah, because then we could tell a little bit more about, do these slowdowns then predict how quickly they open up to the next group? And as we just hinted to earlier, Gila County going into Group 1C, that is the first county of our 15 Arizona counties to achieve that level.
Yes. And just to go through some of this a little bit more, you can see there's a wide gap between men and women on who's being vaccinated. About 60%, it's 60-40 between men and women who have been vaccinated with their at least one dose. And you can see that comes out to percent of Maricopa residents. You can see about 17.5% of women and about 12.5% of men have received at least one dose in Maricopa County. And then we go through an age breakdown. You can see about 27.9% of the doses are for 75 plus. They've done you see more than half of Maricopa County residents over the age of 75 have received at least one dose. That is great news. We want to see that number get into the 70s and 80s and 90s as soon as possible, because this is by far the most at-risk group for COVID-19. You can see about 30% of 65 to 74, and then it drops significantly after that, because this is pretty much a culmination of either 1A or those +1 doses that people talk about that happen. Some, your 15 to 24-year-olds, which obviously there's no one who's 15. It's 16 to 24. That 3.5%, that's going to be, for the most part, 1+ dosers, or some healthcare professionals that were in phase 1A that are just starting out. But that's why that's such a low number there. We do have racial and ethnic data. Here we can see that about 20% of the American Indian, Alaskan Native census designation in Maricopa County. It's a very small group in Maricopa County, but about 20% have received one dose. 12% for Asian Pacific Islander, 6% for Black African American, and then white about 11.4%. You can see that the majority, 66.5% of the vaccinations in Maricopa County are going to the white ethnic racial group. And then when we go, and just so everyone knows, Hispanic is actually considered an ethnicity to the census and not a race, and that's why it's always broken out separately. So this is where you can see for the Hispanic population, it's about 3% versus 8% of the non-Hispanic population. So there's a pretty big discrepancy between the Hispanic or Latino and the non-Hispanic or Latino in the number of residents that are being vaccinated right now. A very low number of Hispanics. We've talked about that. I believe stories about that as well. And then finally, we're just going to go through the map here really quick. Let me bring this out a little bit so it's a little easier to see. This is a side-by-side comparison of Maricopa County. This is the first dose. You can see the darker the color, the more doses of the phase of the eligibility. So this is eligible people. You can see the highest eligibility here is actually the Salt River Pima tribal reservation, that about 87% of those who are eligible have been vaccinated. And then you've got some fairly low numbers out here on the other side. Only about 12% of people in 85009 have been vaccinated. And pretty much you could see this is a situation which most of the suburbs have a much better vaccination rate than the inner city areas, with the exception of Mesa right here. And there is some correlation here in Hispanic numbers versus non-Hispanic numbers. These areas of Phoenix and Mesa are quite heavily populated with Hispanics compared to some of these other places. I can get to the -3 deaths yesterday in just a second.
Yeah, I saw that yesterday.
Yeah.
We weren't able to explain that. We weren't on yesterday, but we'll get to that in a second. Stay with us, Rian.
This, I'll talk to you.
Yeah.
And this is the second dose. So this, as you can see, obviously a much lighter map because we don't have that many places that are eligible or would be even close to having high numbers, except for you can see again, Fort McDowell, another tribal zip code. 85% of Fort McDowell of the eligible population in Fort McDowell have been vaccinated. It's a very small number of people who live there, but basically that means that reservation, that area, that tribal area, the residents there are pretty much at what they need for herd immunity if they all around the zip code, which doesn't happen, of course, but that's what it looks like.
This is a really good breakdown. People can take a closer look at this on Maricopa County's website. Have you seen any of the other counties offering something so specific?
No.
Yeah, that's a really great look that allows us to learn a lot more about who's getting vaccinated and who's not. Okay, so we can talk about Ryan's question. What about the -3 yesterday? So those deaths are always under review, and some are still in the probable category and pulled off.
Mm-hmm. Or they're deduplicated. So it could be several different things. So most county level health departments do not report deaths on Sundays, and that is reflected on Monday reports. So it happens constantly where we see several county health departments, the majority, in fact, will report 0 deaths on a Monday morning's report. And then sometimes Maricopa County will add one or a couple, but really it's a very small amount. And then that when you see a negative number, it's, as Katie said, it's because it's either was under review and it was determined to not be COVID, or it's determined that they don't have the date right, so they have to actually pull it back from the epi curve to give it a date, but it's taken off the epi curve for a bit, so it's removed from the numbers, or it's a deduplication. That does happen too. I mean, they have to do record hygiene, and sometimes they have multiple death certificates that come in, and they realize that that it's the same person, and so they deduplicate it. So it does happen. That's just what happens on Mondays.
Yeah, usually only on a Monday you'd see it because we'd have such low numbers. Hopefully we'll get to a point where you can see that more often because we have such low numbers, but it's only happening on the weekends right now. Okay, so Debbie's asking you, does that mean that we are not #1 in the world anymore?
No, we haven't been #1 in the world in
quite some time.
I'll go to 91 DVOC. This is where we go to check what the numbers look like so we can normalize the states by population. You can see we're actually in sort of the middle to lower tier now for the states. Iowa, something happened in Iowa, and they just shot up like crazy. In fact, they're almost above where we were. 134 was at our peak, and they're at 138. So they're higher than we were at our peak.
They were loosening some of the mask restrictions there. I wonder if that could show up that quickly.
Yeah, this is the first I've seen it where they've had just numbers that shoot up past everybody else. Usually, now when I see that as a data analyst, my first instinct, by the way, is just to say there's a change in the reporting, the way that things were reported, or something else that's not just the movement of the disease, because that is a very, very aggressive upturn that you can't see in nearly any other metric for an entire year. So there has to be something other than, or typically it's something other than, oh, there's just a spike in the disease. It could be, like I said, a change in reporting patterns or something, but we don't know that. That's just my first instinct as someone who does data.
Yeah, something to actually go investigate a little bit more before making any assumptions about what that map is saying.
Correct. Yes, but we are no longer the top in the world. We're now in sort of the middle to bottom tier ranking for numbers. Now, as far as our deaths, we may be up there with deaths still. We have a pretty, it takes longer for deaths to go down, and they've been pretty constant lately. So let's see where we are. We are not, but we're still very high. You can see we're the 4th in the country, normalized by population, for the number of deaths.
Yeah, and I saw, Garrett, when you did highlight Iowa before, we did see one other peak in Iowa's chart there. I don't know if it's going to show up on this one, if they've had the same loss of life there as well, to see 2 different spikes in there. Are you seeing that for the green?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
Will you highlight Iowa on this chart
Iowa,
as well?
Yes. Oh, you want me to do it?
Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting.
Add Arizona back in so you can see both of them.
It was just interesting because Iowa had 2 similar peaks in there,
yes,
on the last chart as they did on this death chart, not just as they did on the case chart. So it looked like, very similar points. So just be interesting to look into what happened there. Again, see the 2 different.
Exactly. No, sorry, Katie, I interrupted you. No. I mean, yeah, that's a very interesting. I mean, to go from the 18.4 new cases per day to 138 in what looks like just one reporting day, to me seems that there's something. I mean, I'll look for a news article.
Yeah. Sarah's weighing in. Sarah writes, Iowa changed reporting from individual positives to test positives. We don't know. We're full disclosure, this is not our area of expertise at all. Yeah. We are just concentrating on Arizona numbers, but so if you are watching from Iowa, it's something worth checking out or looking into a little more there before you read into those numbers. Sorry, we wish we could broadcast for every state because we get so many questions from all over. I've had emails from people from Spokane to Florida who've watched around the country and really around the world. We've gotten emails from London after some of our broadcasts. So we appreciate all of you wherever you're watching from. It's just we try to just concentrate on Arizona numbers exactly for that reason, because we have the specific knowledge of the data and how things are happening here. So Garrett, when you're looking at that and we're seeing we're not the worst in the world anymore, it makes people feel a little bit better. I think the big talker around Arizona right now is just how fast we've been able to decrease those numbers. And as you've been saying, it might be sort of a leveling out, that we're at this bottom here, but this has really dropped off very fast from where we were just 1 month ago. I think it's surprising to a lot of people how quickly we can sort of turn things around, but we saw that on the increase too.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what you kind of, and again, I'm basing this off of someone who's looked at the data and just as a data analyst, but it's still a hypothesis. It's something that I can't prove at this point, but I am looking into it and people are looking into it. It does appear that, there is a seasonality to this, and that the holiday season, I think I've talked about this before, where people were gathering together, did sort of increase the numbers pretty quickly. We got to a peak about the time that you would expect, about 4 to 5 days after January 1st. You saw it starting to peak, and then all of a sudden the holiday season was over. People were they stopped doing things with each other, and then people started to go back to their normal behaviors, and the numbers just subsided because no one was really going out as much. That's just what it appears to me to be right now.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to academics studying this and other people looking at mobility data and seeing what could be the cause of these sort of numbers. And people need to understand that science does move slowly. This has been a year where everyone expected science to move at a rapid pace, and they criticized science when it did move at a rapid pace and then was wrong. But the thing is we need to have some patience while they look at the data, because the best science is the science where they try to debunk their own theories. And, that takes a while. You can't just put out something and say, this is what we think, and then not go back and say, well, here's X, Y, and Z as a control that we've already looked at to say, yep, this pretty much wouldn't have been the cause. So what we think is the cause. And that's something that's lacking sometimes. So we have to be patient while they look at all the data and see where they can sort of say, yes, this seasonality, that the holiday season was one of the biggest.
Yeah, as we've said all year, we're only as good as the data coming in. That only helps, and having long-term and data-heavy research there will better the science in the long term. Andrea's writing, we had Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. So thankful the numbers have improved. Same, it's getting a lot better. Dora writes, hopefully it doesn't increase again with spring break approaching soon. I think we all share that sentiment for sure. I guess what I was saying earlier, Garrett, in these vaccine vaccination numbers are when we're celebrating the 1.5 million across the state of Arizona, and we have 7 million people. If a higher percentage of those people are vaccinated here in Maricopa County, we're not like 1/7 of the state vaccinated. We could almost be like 1 in every 4 here in Maricopa County, because those numbers are changing so rapidly here within this area of just 4 million people, that we might be actually enjoying a bit higher percentage rate of those vaccinated.
Yeah, I mean,
ratio wise.
I'll have to look at the ratios to see what they are, but yes,
Yeah.
we're doing pretty good in Maricopa County per capita right now. They are adding another state pod to the East Valley, I believe.
Yes.
I don't know what's online, but
I got you. I got you covered for that. The new vaccination site's going to be opening on March 3rd. So that is the date that you can start signing up. I believe that is a Wednesday that it will open, but you can start signing up for your appointment on March 1st. So Monday morning at 9 a.m. is going to be that push to jump online to get your spot. If you've been saying you haven't been able to get a slot, that would be a really good time. Sign up at 9, go on AZDHS. That's the spot. And then one thing of note, this is going to be like one of those sites over at State Farm Stadium where it's 24/7. But while it opens right now, it's going to only be open from 7 in the morning till 5. Remember, we still got that lag in doses arriving from the storms that hit the rest of the country. There are about 6 million doses that are experiencing weather delays that they're trying to get out across the western half of the U.S. So it's just something to note as they start to get back up to full speed once again. But if you're interested in signing up, if you're in one of those groups that you're allowed to, you wanted specifically to get the Pfizer vaccine, so you wanted to go to one of the state-run sites, that is where you can go sign up March 1st at 9 a.m. to start getting your shot March 3rd. So hopefully that helps. Okay. Hey, Vicky's been so patient on here asking about Maricopa County. Can we show her this? Yeah, the spot on, and I'm thinking she's asking for like the vaccine phases, because feeling a little left out. Now they're in priority 1B for Mojave County right now. I know they have had about almost about 25,000 doses that are administered in that specific county. And so group 1B means many people still have a little bit of time to wait. That is just like education and childcare workers, protective services occupations, anybody 65 and older. They are in that 65 and older age group, as is really everywhere across the state now. But Mojave County feeling a little left out in this. These doses are given out based on population care.
Yes. So I just looked at Mojave County. They are in priority 1B, as you said. Let's go look at Mojave right now. You can see, oh, did they change things again? They just rolled out, they literally just rolled out a new one of these. Man, I'm going to have to
relearn.
You hours and hours of recoding.
I'm sorry.
I'm like, don't do that to me.
This is how people feel on a much smaller scale when they log onto Facebook and it's changed and they don't know where anything is.
I'm like,
but yours
looking at this like, oh great, new data.
Right.
This is awesome, but I'm going
Oh no. I know.
So much fun trying to change my code to get this. Anyway, sorry, that's just me.
That's okay. That's okay. So we see the 25,000 doses that they've given out in Mojave County.
Actually, you know what's funny? I hate to say it, but I think I actually asked for this change, and they just didn't tell me that it was coming out. Because when they asked me about the data, I think I asked, hey, can we get doses and people? I think
oh my gosh. And they listened, and now it's causing you more work.
I listened, and I was like, oh wait, I didn't know it was coming. Anyway,
it's a case of be careful what you wish for, Garrett.
Okay, sorry about that. That's
so 9% of people vaccinated in Mojave County. That is a little lower than what we're seeing statewide here.
So if you go to like Maricopa County, you can see 9.7% of people vaccinated. Maricopa County is at about 9%.
Mojave County is at 9%.
Mojave County, my apologies. We'll just keep going through here. 19% for Yavapai County. That's pretty large.
Really? Yeah.
These should be pretty high. No, 7. I was actually expecting this to be fairly high. 7.4% for Apache County, and this is 11.9 for Navajo County. Percent of doses utilized 103%. That's pretty incredible. So go to a small county. 30% of Greenlee is vaccinated at this point. 10% of Graham. Cochise 13%. Pima County 16%. They're doing much better than Maricopa County.
Yeah, they got the new pod opened up there.
Yeah, their doses utilized is 100%. Santa Cruz, this was a hotspot at one point. 16.8% of people are vaccinated. Yuma County, another hotspot, 11.3. little lower. And then Pinal County is at 10.4. So actually, Maricopa County is actually not doing as well as some of these others. Although you can see our doses utilized 103%. So I mean, we are utilizing these doses now. Yeah, I'll look at what the percent of people vaccinated is. I'll have to see, what that. Let's see if that. Hold on, I'm going to take this out. And 15%. So yeah, no, that is correct. So when you put the whole state together, it goes to about 15%. So this is percent of people vaccinated here is the percent of people who have received at least one dose of the vaccine. So they're not fully vaccinated. That's what that next number is down here, is the fully vaccinated. So everyone knows.
Okay, so Vicky might to validate Vicky's feelings a little bit. She might be feeling a little left out because the numbers are low, not the lowest though, Vicky, but they are a bit low in Mojave County. So this is where you can track this too, Vicky, right on the AZDHS site under vaccinations, and you'll be able to see the breakdown a little bit more. Hopefully, they can get some more doses out there very soon. I know everybody's fighting over it. I mean, we hear this from everybody everywhere. I try to answer as many comments on my Facebook page as I can about where to find these vaccinations and where to go. And I see the spot I talked about last week is now jam-packed. Nobody can get in there. So hopefully a few of you snag some appointments before I mentioned it to everyone.
Now, Debbie was asking, where does the extra 3% come from? I don't know. I'm going to ask AZDHS to clarify how a county shows it reports 103%.
Yeah,
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I did notice, Garrett, that some of the counties that were reporting over were also the counties that had to hold off on so they had appointments booked, but they had to hold off because the vaccination was delayed after the storms. Don't know if that plays into it, but it's something to consider because those are matching up in the same way. All right. So are people getting more mobile? Are people out and about a little bit more? Are they sticking close to home? Are they being called back to work? What's going on here
Let's check that. We can do it together because I haven't looked in a couple weeks. So this will be an adventure for everybody.
I'm sure they've changed their site too to allow you for more work, Garrett.
Yes. No, I actually changed over to COVID Cast for this. I really like this site, and because they're using Facebook data, it's a really cool site. It's by Carnegie Mellon University. Like I said, it's called COVID Cast, and it just gives a bunch of data on COVID-19. So this is public behavior at location. We'll go to 3 to 6 hours. So this is what the 3 to 6 hours looks like across the country. You can see a lot more movement in the middle of the country and in the south than in our area. Let me bring up one of these graphs here. This is what it looks like. Wait, this is Allegheny County. I don't care about what's happening in Allegheny. I'm just kidding. I'm sure a lot of people care about.
Somebody's going to be watching from Pennsylvania right now and be upset with you.
I'm getting yelled at in a second. Sorry. All right, Maricopa County. Let's just go with here. You can see this is a pretty. The trend line here is pretty standard. It's and this is only this is only from October. So let me bring it back a little bit. Can I expand this? Let's see. Come on. No, it wants to keep me at October. I don't know why. All right.
So Garrett, when we first started looking at this, we were, a bit challenged in that we didn't have data beyond the start of COVID.
Yes.
Now we're getting to this point where we're going to have the luxury of a full year's worth of data.
Exactly. We're beyond the index for most places. We're going to be beyond the index. I think the index was done on March 6th is when most of the mobility data stopped. And that's when they started saying, okay, this is the index point for all the movement. And so we're getting close to that point where we'll have a full year's worth of data. And here you can see our movement very frenetic. It's moving around a lot, staying between 70 and 80% for people who are going out. It's fairly high at the moment. It looks like it's about 8%, 8% of the population right now moving around. When we go to 6 hours, let's see what that does. Where am I at right now? Okay, let's go to 6 hours here. Very similar numbers on those. What's interesting about Arizona is we do have fairly high restaurant visits as compared to some other places. If I open up the compare mode, for example, and I'm looking at our restaurant visits. Let me add, let's say, let's go to the obvious one. Let's add Los Angeles County. And
because they're shut down.
obviously they're in a lockdown, but you can see Maricopa County's restaurant visits are much higher than what they are in, say, Los Angeles County. And you can go to this site and do this for pretty much every county.
Yeah.
They're using Facebook data to get all this, and I'm sure most of you people were actually broadcasting on Facebook. I'm sure some of you have gotten this survey before. It's a COVID-19 survey. It asks you like 30 or 40 questions, and a lot of them have to do with, did you go someplace in the last couple, the last couple weeks, or excuse me, the last couple days? What do you think about the vaccine? It asks you all these questions, and a lot of the data that they're ingesting has to do with that Facebook survey.
Yeah, really interesting. I talked to a couple of restaurant owners just this last weekend. They said that this has been their busiest time frame these last few days than they have seen the entire pandemic. So that is not, unlike what you're seeing reflected there.
Anecdotally, it feels that way too. The couple times
out and about.
Again, to be frank with anybody who's new on this, I had COVID. I had it in early January. So, I still go out with the mask and everything, but it does seem a lot busier out there than it has in the past. Yeah.
I'm just wondering how my 3-year-old will do in a restaurant, because we have not eaten in a restaurant in a year, which means he was 2 when the last time we ate in public. So wish us luck when we finally
that's gonna be fun.
Get our vaccine and get out there again. It'll be terror. I hate to be the table next to us. Just kidding. He's very well behaved. Okay, so some updates on the production lines and all of this. The vaccination production lines are being upped, and rapidly. Pfizer and Moderna both increasing their production right now. The exact specifics they just put out in a tweet on each of their Twitter accounts. Johnson & Johnson eagerly awaiting this weekend. They are hoping to have approval from the FDA as early as this weekend. That would really be a game changer in all of this. I know so many of you have questions on, like, when is my group going to be called? When am I going to be invited to go get my vaccine? Nicole Grigg is digging for answers on this, and she'll have even more on it tonight in our newscast coming up at 5 and 6. Because I know that's probably the question we get most, Garrett, is like, when is Group 1C going to be called? When is this group or that group going to be called? We just don't have any more information. We're waiting as you are.
Just to show you what I'm looking at right now, and I think we may have talked about this before, even in this broadcast. My brain's a little fuzzy, but when I look at the vaccine dashboard, and I'm going to be doing some analysis on this when I can, but let's just look at the vaccine dashboard really quick, and we see that obviously when you look at the epi curve, if you will. I know it's not really technically an epi curve, but I've been using that term forever, so I'm going to keep using it. When you look at the epi curve of vaccine doses administered, you can see just intuitively that the increase is not happening anymore. We're now seeing sort of a leveling off in the number of vaccines that we are distributing. And while we have the situation with the storm that could be impacting the number of vaccines we're getting, if this sort of curve continues, will that is that an indicator that a county is getting ready to move into the next phase?
What are these
really quick?
Garrett, what are those are those dips the week to week? Is that when we're seeing? I mean, we see sort of a rhythm of that chart there. Is that anything?
Yeah,
is that a certain day of the week?
It looks like weekends are not as, and it might be a reporting. I'm not really sure.
But the weekends show up lower.
Weekends show up lower. Let's see. The 14th was Sunday, right? Yeah, 14th, 15th, and it does appear that Sundays are the day. Sundays have very low reporting days. And again, a lot of this has to do with who's working that day at the Department of Health, so
right? Whether that gets released.
I think this place is 24 hours a day. Well, if you look at the state pods, interestingly enough, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna recant what I just said, because you look at the state pods, you can see there's very little fluctuation in the numbers, and so these state distribution sites are up 24 hours a day. It doesn't matter if it's Sunday or not, but it does appear that the county sites, whether it's a reporting issue or whatnot, but there is a lower number of vaccine doses administered on Sundays and Mondays than other days.
Yeah. Okay. So different places where you can sign up for a vaccine. I know it's still a struggle for a lot of people. We showed the one, the Passport Health one, that was then jam packed after we talked about it. I don't think I've seen an open slot in there, but there's the site, if you do want to go check it, that is one that's
that site, yeah.
that site. That's one that is peek on there really quick, Garrett, if you can, and see if there are any while I'm talking about this. And then everybody's going to jump over there and try and fight over it. But
before I do,
Passport Health seemed to have one in North Scottsdale, and it had several days that were open. I signed my dad up over there, and he was able to get his shot. My mom's heading out to the pod this week, so some good news for both my parents, and I hope that those of you who've been on there have been able to find something. If not, try that one. The other thing is the AZDHS site, of course, that we've always talked about, and then signing up right through the county. If you need a brief tutorial on that, you can find that on abc15.com/coronavirus. So you can kind of get signed up in a couple different ways, or dig through some of those numbers, because I know a lot of people are saying, well, I looked over here and then they had a bunch, and then and then also the pharmacies, Walgreens, and different things like that. So
you're talking and I'm doing that.
Any luck? Were you finding any?
Let's see. There was that. What was the one? There was the one location that had the vaccine of these. And
oh, you know what? If you're on that page, I think it's already too hard to find it. Only through that one link were they able to get one. It's okay. Yeah, because I've gone through on that other page and tried to go through all those sites and really had no luck.
It's the one site that has it.
It's a traveling site, and that's what you had to
site up. I just can't find the actual clinic. There was one clinic that had it.
And this is the frustration in so many people going on there and finding different spots. So we know there's frustration. We get emails from so many of you trying to look through and find this. Marnie's asking, have they said when they will move to Group 1C? They have not, unless you're in Gila County. Gila County has moved to 1C, and of course, just to recap for everybody else is in either 1B priority or 1B. So here are the 1Bs: Apache, Coconino, La Paz, Navajo, Santa Cruz. Everybody else is priority 1B. So they haven't even moved to full 1B yet. So if you're in Maricopa County, if you're still in Maricopa County, they're still in priority 1B. They've got to go through all of regular 1B before they even get to 1C. So we have a little ways to wait. If that's Marnie, I'm just assuming you're in Maricopa County, but that's we still got one more group to get to before we go to 1C. So we don't know. All right, let's see. Sarah is asking about the cases. There's a lack of reporting cases. Fewer people are getting tested now. We found an interesting metric in all of this, Garrett, that half of all Arizonans have been tested at least once. And I know even after you were tweeting that out, we had done a story on it, but you had tweeted it out. I saw somebody even ask you, really? Half of the population? This is not, half of the population has been tested. Yeah, this is not unique. This is not repeat tests. This is, people can be repeat tested. I was repeat tested. I think you've probably been repeat tested now through all of this, but I mean, this is unique testers reaching half of the population here.
Half the population
here in Arizona.
Yes, and the testing is going down. So, but let me just show you 4 charts. These are my internal charts, and I will show you what this looks like. All right, so just to show you what things are looking at, this is the cases. You can see we had this very rapid decline, and right here is where we are right now. I was talking about how we're seeing a leveling off. The number of tests have also been declining, but not at the same rate as the cases. And you can see we've also sort of leveled off with the number of tests. The deaths are slightly up. And then this is the positivity rate. So whenever the cases go down or the tests go down, it's very important to watch the positivity rate. And you can see it's done a little bit of a check mark here. Where it's not going up per se, but it's kind of leveled off. And that's with all that these numbers showing a leveling off. It seems that we're going to settle at 9% here for a little bit. And I don't know how long that's going to last. I believe that it's still going to continue to go down, but just not at the same rate we've seen.
Yeah, it's interesting to see these test numbers change, and the testing sites are still out there. I just want to remind everybody that when you're going to get tested, you should not be charged for it. It should be a test that is provided to you free, although it might charge your insurance or something else. This should be a free test for you, whether you can pay or not, whether you have insurance or not. It should always be a free test. So please remember that, so you don't get scammed by something else. I'm still seeing people say that COVID is fake in the comments, which is just absurd to me, honestly. A year out.
It's a hobby for some people.
Yeah, it has to be.
ridiculous.
It has to be.
Or they're not even, there's a lot of crazy disinformation bots on Facebook, and I'm not trying to, accuse people of not being real, but that happens too.
Yeah, it's just it's unreal when I see some of the conversation pop up again about it. And you don't need to bring the comment up, but I saw someone else say that no, they were just obese or they were old. I just really, really want to remind people, when you talk like that, that is ableism. Please do some research on what ableism is and have respect for all human lives, not just those who are dealing with other challenges or those who are older. That does not make their life any less important. So, okay, with that, Garrett, we just have a few minutes left, a few more things to track as we go through this. And as we talk about these things, I know that there's something that's trending on Twitter right now, and I do want to mention it briefly. And that is a look at the cities. If we compared this, and you know what? It's not even going to be up on my screen anymore. I'm going to have to pull it up somewhere. You've got it. Okay, so to put the 500,000, to put 500,000 American lives lost in perspective, sometimes it's easier for people to conceptualize that when we're talking about cities. And there was just a graphic on Twitter talking about how many cities that in total would be to get 500,000. And quite a few American cities are listed in that to get to 500,000 gone. So Salt Lake.
Yeah, Reno. These are all American cities that have a lower population than the number of people who have passed away from COVID-19 or because of COVID-19, I guess is the way to put it. So New Jersey, Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Honolulu, and then Cleveland, New Orleans, and Minneapolis, and I think Oakland. Wow, it just keeps going, and then Miami. So all of those cities have a larger population or a smaller population than 500,000. That would also include Mesa as well. I mean, Mesa is not a major city by any stretch, but Mesa is about that same size.
Yeah. It just sort of puts it in perspective when we're talking about these massive numbers. And it's just I know for some people it's hard to even wrap your mind around 500,000 lives lost. I know when we were just starting this, Garrett, we were looking at some of the projections and some of the numbers, and that's where you can find that, by the way, dailybeast.com for that sort of look back. But when we talked about this and how many lives could be lost and how many Arizonans lives could be lost and how many American lives globally, when you think of 2.4 million lives lost already, it's hard to wrap your mind around it sometimes. And we know that when we've lost someone and we think of just that person, what a precious life that is to lose, and then multiply that times 500,000 here in the US. It's just pretty incredible. So take some time to just think about that. And be lucky you woke up today. Be lucky you're here and you have another day. So I think we'll kind of wrap it up there. We do have more stuff to talk about this week. We have other numbers to track, and really this rapid decrease is some great news for Arizona. Hopefully we can sustain it or even go a little bit lower, especially when there are concerns of other variants.
Hospitalizations continue to drop pretty quickly.
Yeah.
The one metric we were talking about, everything's sort of leveling out. Well, hospitals and ICUs haven't leveled out yet. They're still dropping at about 25% a week. So as long as that continues, the death numbers will also continue to drop and drop faster. So hopefully we those continue and we don't see those leveling out yet.
Yeah, and as we always talk about, we see that rise in case numbers or that plateau and then peak and then fall. We have to see that for each thing. So we see that for cases, then we see that for hospitalizations, then we ultimately see that for deaths. And we're still, as 148 Arizonans are reported to have passed, and that just coming in the last 24 hours, that reminds us that we're still very much in this. Okay, so schools. Lots of changes coming up in the next couple of weeks. I know my kids have not been there in a year. They're getting ready. They're getting geared up as they see these numbers drop. So if you'd like to track how schools are changing their plans, and we're trying to add to it as fast as we can, abc15.com/schools. We're trying to update that list. A lot of people going back on the 15th and 16th of March. I know some people started back just yesterday. I'm seeing their first day of school pictures just posted on a lot of different social media accounts and things like that as people send their families back. So we will continue to track it all. We have more reporting coming up for you at 4 in a matter of minutes, about 5 minutes. They're getting ready over there at 4, 5, 6, 9 over on the CW, and 10 p.m. back here on ABC 15. We want to remind you, as always, you can find Garrett on Twitter at Garrett_Archer. I'm on Twitter at Katie Rammel. And many of you are on Facebook, so you can catch me there at facebook.com/news from Katie. We hope you'll check out our reporting. Remember, all our coronavirus reporting is at abc15.com/coronavirus. We'll see you back here soon. Be safe, everybody.